It was just another regular morning at Westside Motors, a busy car dealership in downtown Los Angeles. The sun was shining, sales reps were gearing up for the day, and the manager, Greg, was already pacing the showroom floor, barking out orders and making sure everything ran like clockwork. But what Greg didn't know was that today, everything was about to change. Just before noon, a tall man in a hoodie and sunglasses strolled into the dealership, calm and cool, with a vibe that instantly turned heads. Some of the younger employees paused. They thought they recognized him. But Greg didn't even glance twice. To him, the man was just another looky-loo with no real intention to buy. As the visitor started checking out some of the top-line vehicles, Greg's patience wore thin. "Sir, if you're not serious about purchasing, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Greg said, stepping in front of the man with a tight smile. The room went silent. You could feel the tension in the air. A few of the salespeople looked like they wanted to speak up, but didn't. What Greg missed, what he failed to see through the hoodie and shades, was that he wasn't just talking to a potential customer. He was face-to-face with Snoop Dogg himself. Yes, the Snoop Dogg, rap legend, cultural icon, and, as of yesterday, the brand new owner of Westside Motors. The question now: what happens when the boss shows up undercover and gets kicked out of his own dealership? And more importantly, what will Greg do when he realizes the man he just told to leave holds the keys to his future? Stay tuned, because this story is only just getting started. Greg had been working at Westside Motors for nearly 10 years. He prided himself on being sharp, efficient, and in control. The dealership had always followed a strict code: no loitering, no games, and definitely no distractions. So when a laid-back stranger started casually inspecting their most expensive vehicles without an appointment or even a question, Greg's instincts kicked in. He saw what he thought was another celebrity wannabe trying to make a scene, and he wasn't about to let the showroom become someone's hangout spot. Meanwhile, Snoop Dogg was just trying to take it all in. After finalizing the paperwork the night before, he wanted to visit the place low-key. No entourage, no cameras, just him. He wasn't looking for a red carpet. He wanted to see how things really ran when no one knew the new boss was watching. And let's just say, what he walked into was not what he expected. A few younger staff members recognized him right away. You could see the wide eyes, the nervous glances, but no one had the nerve to say anything. After all, Greg ran a tight ship, and speaking out could mean trouble. Snoop walked past a row of luxury SUVs and paused at a customized blacked-out Escalade. That's when Greg blocked his path, stepping in front with his arms crossed. "Sir, I already asked you once," he said firmly. "We don't allow guests to wander without a salesperson." At that moment, one of the newer employees, Malik, stood frozen behind a desk, whispering to a co-worker, "Yo, is that really Snoop Dogg?" But Greg wasn't listening. He didn't recognize the man in front of him. And Snoop, he just smiled a little, not saying a word, yet. Because the real show was just about to begin. Greg's frustration was building. He hated when things felt out of order, and this mystery man was throwing off the flow of his day. He couldn't shake the feeling that this guy was just here to waste time. "Look, man," Greg said, lowering his voice but keeping it firm, "if you're not here to buy something, you need to leave." Across the showroom, Malik was still frozen. His eyes were locked on Snoop Dogg, and every second that passed made it clearer. It was him. No doubt. The walk, the voice, even the way he stood. But Malik was new, barely 2 months into the job, and he didn't want to overstep, so he kept quiet, hoping someone else would say something. Meanwhile, Snoop took a slow look around. He saw the employees watching silently, saw how Greg took control like he ran the place. It was becoming more than just a visit. It was turning into a test, not just of how the business was managed, but how people were treated, especially when they thought no one important was watching. Back in the office, Rachel, the dealership's finance director, was in the middle of a call when she saw the visitor on the security feed. She blinked, did a double take, then hung up without finishing her sentence. She burst out of the office, heading toward the front, just as Greg was getting ready to escort Snoop out the door. And then there was another wrinkle. A black SUV pulled up outside, tinted windows, sleek rims. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a clipboard and scanning the dealership. He wasn't a customer. He was part of the ownership transition team. The moment his foot hit the sidewalk, things were about to shift. But for now, Greg still thought he was in charge. The tension in the showroom was thick enough to cut through. Greg reached for the front door handle, ready to open it and show the loiterer out. But just as he did, Rachel rushed over, nearly tripping in her heels. "Greg, wait, hold on," she said, breathless, eyes darting between him and Snoop. Greg turned, annoyed. "Rachel, I've got this under control." "No, you don't asterisk," she snapped, lowering her voice. "Do you even know who that is?" Greg glanced at Snoop, still calm, still silent. "Some guy who walked in like he owns the place," Greg muttered. Rachel leaned in. Does asterisk own the place?" At that same moment, the suited man from the black SUV entered the building, carrying a folder with the dealership's logo. He walked straight toward the reception desk, scanning the faces. "I'm looking for the general manager," he said, voice sharp and businesslike. Malik stepped aside, pointing toward Greg. "That's him." The man didn't hesitate. "Perfect. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Brodus to finalize the transition paperwork. Is there a private office available?" Greg blinked, heart sinking. "Brodus." "Snoop Dogg," Rachel whispered. "His real name is Calvin Brodus." Greg looked over at Snoop, who was now casually leaning against the Escalade, arms crossed, watching everything unfold with the faintest smile. The staff stood still, eyes bouncing between the new owner and their stunned manager. No one moved. No one spoke. Greg opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The suited man tapped the folder. "We'd appreciate it if you could show some professionalism during his changeover." And just like that, the world Greg thought he controlled started slipping right through his fingers. The moment of truth was seconds away, and everyone knew it. Greg's jaw clenched as he tried to process what was happening. His face turned a shade paler as reality sank in. He had just tried to kick out the new owner of Westside Motors, and half the staff had witnessed every second of it. Still, in true Greg fashion, he tried to regain control. "There must be some mistake," he said, forcing a weak smile. "No one informed me about a change in ownership." The suited man raised an eyebrow. "You were supposed to receive the memo yesterday. It was sent directly to your email." Before Greg could argue, Lisa stepped out of her office, holding up a printed copy of the email. "I have it right here. The sale went through last night. Effective immediately, the dealership belongs to Mr. Calvin Brodus." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the tension. Snoop finally stepped forward. He removed his shades, letting Greg see him clearly for the first time. The mood shifted instantly. Even the customers in the lobby began whispering, realizing they were witnessing something wild, something no one could have made up. But just when it seemed Greg might swallow his pride and apologize, his phone buzzed. He glanced down, and his eyes widened. He turned even paler. Then, without a word, he bolted past everyone toward his office. Lisa looked confused, then concerned. What was that about? Malik, curious, followed a few steps behind and caught a glimpse through Greg's open office door. On Greg's computer screen was a spreadsheet, employee records, numbers, and a second file labeled New Dealership Plan, Personal Use. Malik froze. Greg hadn't just been running the dealership, had been secretly planning to buy it himself, using funds that didn't belong to him. And now Snoop Dogg owned everything. Greg slammed the office door behind him, but it was too late. Malik had already seen enough. Word spread fast. Whispers turned into quiet gasps as employees started piecing it together. Snoop, standing near the front, watched it all unfold without saying a word. His silence said more than any outburst ever could. Lisa, now visibly shaken, walked into Greg's office without knocking. "What is this?" she asked, pointing at the screen. "You were going to buy the dealership, using the company's reserve funds." Greg didn't deny it. He just stared at the screen, sweat gathering at his brow. "It was supposed to happen before the sale. I had a plan," he muttered. "I never thought. No one said anything about Snoop Dogg being the buyer." Just then, the suited executive entered the office behind them, phone in hand. "We've reviewed the financial logs," he said calmly. "Internal auditing flagged some inconsistencies. This confirms it." Snoop stepped into the doorway, arms still crossed, voice low and steady. "So you were trying to hustle the whole business out from under your team. That's cold, homie." Greg stood frozen. It wasn't personal. Snoop shook his head. "Nah, but it is now." The executive handed Lisa a printed document. "Greg, you're officially terminated, effective immediately. Security's already been notified." As Greg was escorted out, the staff watched in stunned silence. Some looked relieved, others looked inspired. Snoop turned to them, finally cracking a smile. "You're ready to build something real now." The team clapped, light at first, then louder. A new chapter had clearly begun. But just as the mood began to lift, Lisa glanced at the screen again, frowning. "Wait, this second file. It's a list of offshore accounts, and names that aren't Greg's." Snoop's smile faded. The story wasn't over yet. The room fell quiet again as Lisa scrolled through the second file. Her eyes scanned the screen, then widened. These aren't just Greg's accounts. He was working with someone else. Maybe more than one person. She turned to the executive. "You need to see this." The man nodded and took the keyboard, quickly copying the file to a secure drive. "We'll have our legal team investigate. If more people were involved, we'll find them." Snoop nodded slowly. "It's bigger than we thought, but we'll clean it up, one step at a time." By the end of the day, the dealership felt like a new place. Greg was gone, the shady finances were flagged for audit, and the staff, who had always felt like they were just numbers on a spreadsheet, were finally being heard. Snoop called a quick team meeting in the showroom. No fancy speech, no corporate buzzwords, just real talk. "I bought this place because I see potential, not just in the cars. In y'all," he said, looking around. "We're gonna make this dealership a spot where people want to come. Honest deals, respect, community. That's the vibe now." The employees nodded, some smiling for the first time in weeks. Malik stepped up and said what many were thinking. "We've needed this. Someone who actually sees us." The story of Westside Motors had started like any other dealership tale, but now it was something bigger. A lesson in trust, leadership, and what happens when people underestimate the power of respect. As the sun dipped behind the lot, Snoop stood at the edge of the showroom, watching a family test drive their dream car. He smiled, knowing the real work was just beginning. And somewhere, behind the scenes, a bigger storm was still quietly brewing. But for now, peace had its moment.